Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hopeful Moments 1. Today, we'll delve into the topic of unfairness in the workplace, the lack of respect for employees' contributions, and how one employee stood their ground to protect their rights, ultimately leading to their departure and the negative ripple effects on the company. Today's story takes you through an unexpected journey, including an employee refusing offers of better pay and bonuses. The story concludes with the employee leaving the company and receiving a job offer from their former boss's new workplace, proving that standing up for your rights can lead to new opportunities and positive change in the future. If you find this story meaningful and full of lessons, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more valuable insights. Buckle up, it's a long story. I worked at a tech company for nearly 7 years. It was my first job after graduating from university. The company was fantastic, thriving, offering great benefits, and, most importantly, led by an incredible boss. My boss was not just a leader but also a remarkable companion throughout my work journey. Their responsiveness and helpfulness created an exceptionally efficient and supportive work environment. While always available when needed, they also respected our independence, avoiding micromanagement. This fostered a workspace where each individual could grow, challenge themselves, and innovate freely without fear of excessive oversight. What I appreciated most was my boss's trust in our ability to deliver. They always supported us, allowing us the freedom to take responsibility as long as the work was completed on time and met quality standards. This not only gave me a sense of autonomy but also strengthened team morale, as every member felt backed and trusted in their contributions. My boss also genuinely cared about employee well-being, particularly in encouraging us to take our time off. Our company offered unlimited vacation days, and I averaged 30 to 40 days off annually. My boss encouraged us to use this time to recharge, a rare and invaluable trait. They understood that well-rested employees perform better. Financially and professionally, my boss recognized and rewarded hard work. Over the past 3 years, I received consistent raises, 9%, 13%, and another 7%, along with promotions. These acknowledgments fueled my motivation and growth. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the company transitioned to remote work. My boss demonstrated flexibility and understanding. When I requested to transition to a fully remote contract to move back to my hometown, they approved it wholeheartedly. They trusted me to continue performing well, even from a distance. When HR proposed adjusting my salary to align with the lower cost of living in my area, my boss rejected the idea, emphasizing that my role and responsibilities remained unchanged. This fairness showcased their commitment to equity and respect for individual circumstances. Our team was exceptionally stable, with every member having at least 3.5 years of experience. This stability reflected the exceptional leadership that fostered loyalty and growth. Over the years, I received multiple job offers with higher pay, but I found it difficult to leave the company. The strong connection with my team, my boss, and the company kept me committed. In summary, my boss was not only an intelligent and visionary manager but also a leader who genuinely respected and supported employees. Their guidance and the nurturing work environment allowed me to grow professionally and personally. Together with a teammate, I specialized in handling complex, high-impact projects that significantly influenced the company. These projects required intense focus and expertise, setting them apart from daily tasks. Over 4 years, we became the go-to team for resolving the company's most challenging issues, safeguarding the quality and timeliness of these initiatives. Recognizing the growing workload, we decided to expand our team and train 2 new members. These projects were critical, with potential errors costing the company hundreds of thousands, even millions, of dollars. This was the company's fastest-growing segment, demanding meticulous attention to detail. No project went to a client without at least one of us overseeing it. However, 2 years ago, a significant shift occurred. My boss's superior was promoted to Senior Vice President, SVP, and a new Vice President, VP, was appointed. The new VP swiftly implemented rapid changes across the company, particularly affecting our team's operations. The VP prioritized quantifiable metrics, often disregarding their practicality. For instance, they wanted to track the number of projects each team member completed monthly, without considering the complexity of the work. A straightforward project was weighted the same as a highly intricate one, making evaluations inaccurate and unfair. The pressure intensified when the VP demanded faster project completion, even if deadlines weren't imminent. This created a high-stress environment, straining the team and threatening the quality of our work. My boss strongly opposed these changes but was repeatedly criticized by the new vice president for failing to meet the unreasonable metrics he wanted to implement. Despite my boss's team being the most experienced and efficient in the company, handling more complex and significant projects than any other group, my boss was forced to accept unrealistic demands from higher management. While our team was dealing with a larger and more complex workload, our efforts were not properly recognized because they couldn't be quantified by the metrics imposed by the new VP. About 9 months ago, after enduring repeated criticism for failing to meet these unrealistic expectations, my boss decided to leave the company. This was a heartbreaking decision for all of us, as he had been with the company for 13 years and was one of its earliest employees. When we heard he was leaving, the entire team was shocked and felt a profound sense of loss. Our boss was not just a brilliant leader but also a mentor and a friend who had guided us through countless challenges. We tried to advocate for the most senior member of our team to be promoted into his role, as she understood his work philosophy and could maintain the work environment we cherished. The departure of our boss left a huge void, but we were determined to carry on and uphold the values he had instilled in us. We hoped that his successor would continue his legacy and preserve the team spirit we had built over the years through hard work and camaraderie. The new VP conducted interviews with the most senior team member and a few external candidates, ultimately choosing someone from his former company. This decision marked a turning point for our team, and the woman he selected, whom we later referred to as the new boss, quickly made her presence felt, for all the wrong reasons. From the moment she joined, her sweeping changes completely disrupted our team. She began altering processes that had been refined over many years without consulting anyone. Every decision she made was authoritative and dismissive of our input. The workflow we had carefully built through years of effort and teamwork was dismantled in a matter of weeks, leading to a rapid decline in team morale. In less than a month, our team's output had plummeted. The changes she imposed not only failed to deliver the expected results but also created confusion and challenges in our day-to-day tasks. Our team, which had been the best performing group in the company, was now the worst, and the situation continued to deteriorate. We were not just facing unreasonable changes but also a blatant lack of respect for the work and dedication that had made our team successful. About 2 months later, the new boss began interfering with the specialized team handling complex projects that we had led for years. Despite not understanding the nature of these projects, she issued directives and demands that created a slew of issues, causing delays and failures in critical projects. This was a huge blow to us, as we were used to working under a leader who had a clear vision and understood our work. The new boss started criticizing us for our poor performance metrics, even though the projects we handled were significantly more complex and time-consuming than those of other teams, sometimes requiring 10 to 100 times more effort. Our lower metrics were inevitable, but instead of understanding and appreciating this, she unfairly criticized us. Eventually, she issued a strict warning that if we didn't meet her performance expectations, we would be placed on performance improvement plans, PIPs. This was a devastating blow to team morale because we knew that continuing to focus on complex projects would make it impossible to meet the metrics she demanded. As a result, we decided to shift all our efforts to simpler projects to hit the required metrics, even though this meant abandoning the challenging, high-value projects we had spent years building. These critical projects were left in limbo, ignored in favor of chasing unrealistic performance metrics. Team morale suffered deeply, not just because of her ignorant interference but also because of the sense of loss and frustration. We had been a cohesive and high-performing team, but under her leadership, everything changed. We no longer felt valued, and our hard work seemed unappreciated. Each member of the team felt immense pressure, and her leadership left us doubting her competence and judgment. Chaos ensued when our specialized team abruptly stopped handling complex projects, focusing solely on simpler tasks to meet performance metrics. The entire team had to adjust their work methods completely to satisfy the demands, leaving important and resource-intensive projects untouched. This had a ripple effect across the company. The sales team quickly realized that critical deals were being delayed and that significant commissions tied to these projects were at risk. When they approached us for updates on the complex projects, we all gave the same response. The new boss instructed us to focus all our efforts on metric X, so that's what we're doing. Unfortunately, we can't complete the complex projects. Please reach out to her for further assistance. This response did not sit well with the new boss or the VP, and they were soon flooded with complaints from other departments. Tensions escalated rapidly as the sales team began to push back hard against the situation. A meeting was held, during which the vice president, VP, demanded that we immediately return to handling complex projects. However, we refused, knowing that doing so would make it impossible to meet the metrics imposed by the female manager. We couldn't accept working under performance indicators that failed to reflect the effort and nature of our work. Although they didn't agree to drop the metrics, they still insisted we resume handling the complex projects because we were the only ones with the necessary knowledge and experience to do so. We stood firm in our refusal. This led to a flood of complaints from the sales team, which escalated until the senior vice president, SVP, became involved. The SVP, who had originally created the team responsible for complex projects and understood our critical role within the company, took our side. He confirmed that we would not be evaluated based on the imposed metrics and could return to managing complex projects without fear of being placed on a performance improvement plan, PIP. Eventually, we resumed work on the complex projects, but the tension remained high. By this time, 3 other members of the complex projects team had started actively looking for new jobs. They worked at offices in high-cost living areas, and the situation worsened when the female manager enforced a new policy requiring in-office attendance at least 3 days per week, despite company policy not mandating it. This added to the strain they faced under her leadership, while I, working remotely, was spared that additional burden. I wasn't actively job hunting because I was preoccupied with our unfinished work and an upcoming vacation for my wedding and honeymoon, which had been pre-approved by my former manager before he left. This vacation was scheduled about 3 months after the female manager started and 1 month after the PIP debacle. The female manager, however, was furious, claiming we had embarrassed her in front of the SVP. She went out of her way to make our lives harder, even during my planned time off. That month, one of the most experienced and closest members of my team abruptly quit after securing a new job, leaving without notice. Another team member also submitted their resignation and was set to leave within a week. The loss of half the team amid the pressure of chasing performance metrics after the PIP ordeal made an already overwhelming situation far worse. Morale within the team plummeted. Motivation disappeared, leaving a pervasive sense of frustration and helplessness. What was once a cohesive and strong team had disintegrated under the female manager's leadership. With 6 out of 16 team members either gone or leaving soon, we faced a severe staffing crisis, threatening the stability of both our team and the company. Then came the bombshell: the female manager canceled my wedding vacation, claiming the team's workload was too slow. She announced this via a Zoom call. I firmly told her that missing my wedding and honeymoon for work was out of the question. I informed her I would take my leave as planned and let her decide if she wanted to lose another team member temporarily or permanently. She responded with blame, shouting, and threats until I ended the Zoom call. She later sent an official email stating my leave was canceled and that failure to report to work would be considered job abandonment. I replied to her email, copying the VP, the SVP, and a few sales VPs I frequently worked with, explaining the situation. I thanked them for the opportunity but resigned immediately, citing the female manager's lack of respect as my primary reason. The SVP and several sales VPs immediately reached out, urging me not to quit. The email chain spiraled into a storm of complaints about the poor management of my team under the female manager and concerns about losing critical deals due to my departure. The SVP ultimately stepped in to defuse the situation, but the whole spectacle was oddly satisfying to witness. Ignoring Slack messages and work calls, I spent the rest of that day at a bar celebrating my decision. The next morning, slightly hungover and late to wake up, I found several voicemails from the SVP asking me to call him back. When I finally spoke with the SVP, he empathized with my frustrations and asked me to reconsider. He offered a deal: if I returned for the week and trained a few team members to handle the complex projects during my leave, he would approve my vacation, pay me a $3,000 wedding bonus, and ensure that upon my return, I would take over managing the complex projects team. Additionally, I could recruit 2 new team members to rebuild the group. Given the expenses of a wedding, I agreed. For the remainder of that week, I focused on training the team and then left for my wedding and honeymoon. Both events were fantastic. The VP called me a few times during my leave, panicking after the 4th member of my team quit abruptly, but I ignored his calls. Returning to work, I braced for chaos, and chaos it was. Sales teams bombarded me with messages about urgent complex projects overdue by 2 weeks. The temporary trainees I had quickly on board couldn't handle much of the workload. A mountain of backlogged work loomed over the team, compounded by the loss of half the original members. I shut down Slack and emailed the sales VPs directly, asking for a prioritized list of complex deals needing completion. Once I had the list, I tackled it during regular work hours, no overtime. The female manager avoided speaking to me entirely. The VP checked in a few times and even asked me to work over the weekend to catch up, but I declined. A meeting was held, and the deputy director demanded that we immediately return to working on complex projects. However, we refused because we knew that doing so would make it impossible to meet the metrics imposed by the female boss. We could not accept working under metrics that did not reflect our efforts and the nature of our work. Even though they refused to remove the metrics, they still insisted that we handle the complex projects because we were the only ones with the knowledge and experience to do so. We firmly declined. This led to a series of complaints from the sales team until the senior vice president, SVP, stepped in. The SVP was the one who established the team responsible for the complex projects and understood the importance of this team to the company. He sided with us, stating that we should not be evaluated by these metrics and could return to managing the complex projects without worrying about being placed on a PIP. Finally, we went back to handling the complex projects, but the tension remained high. At this point, the remaining 3 members of my team handling the complex projects realized that the situation was unsustainable and began actively looking for new jobs. They were still working at an office in a high cost of living area, and things got worse when the female boss changed the work policy, requiring everyone to be in the office at least 3 days a week, even though this was against company policy. This forced them to endure even more unpleasant behavior from her, while I, working remotely, did not face the same pressure. I wasn't looking for a new job because I was distracted by ongoing work and a pre-approved vacation by my former boss. He had approved 2 weeks off for my wedding and honeymoon before leaving the company. However, this happened about 3 months after the female boss started and a month after the PIP incident. She was furious, believing that we had embarrassed her in front of the SVP. She tried every possible way to make our lives difficult, even refusing to leave us alone during vacation. That month, the most experienced member of the complex projects team, who was also my close friend, got a new job and abruptly left without notice. Another team member also submitted their resignation, with only 1 week's notice. With the team stretched thin and under immense pressure from the performance metrics after the PIP incident, losing half the team made everything even worse. Additionally, team morale plummeted. We no longer had the motivation to try harder. Feelings of helplessness and frustration grew, and the entire team began to feel the collapse of the long-standing work environment we had been a part of. With 6 out of 16 members having left or in the process of leaving, our team could no longer maintain stability, and the company faced a severe staffing crisis. Then, the female boss decided to cancel my pre-approved wedding vacation because the team's work progress was too slow. She announced this over Zoom. I told her that there was no way I would miss my wedding and honeymoon because of work, and that she could decide whether she wanted to lose another team member for 2 weeks or permanently. She yelled, blamed, and threatened until I hung up the Zoom call. She sent an official email stating that my vacation was canceled and that if I didn't come to work, it would be considered job abandonment. I called back, responded to her email, and CC'd the deputy director, SVP, and a few sales VPs I regularly worked with, explaining the situation. This was my wedding and honeymoon. I thanked them for the opportunity but resigned immediately, citing the female boss's disrespect. The SVP and some sales VPs immediately messaged me, asking me not to resign. The email chain exploded with complaints about how poorly my team was managed by the female boss and the risks of losing complex deals because I was no longer available. The SVP eventually quelled the situation, but it was fascinating to read. I ignored Slack messages and didn't work for the rest of that day. I turned everything off and went to a bar to enjoy myself. The next morning, I woke up late and hungover, with a few voicemails from the SVP asking me to call him back. I called him back in the early afternoon, and he was very sympathetic, asking me to return to work. He listened to all my complaints and eventually made an offer. If I returned to work for the rest of the week and trained a few team members to handle complex projects in my absence, he would give me a $3,000 wedding bonus, ensure I got my vacation days, and when I returned, the female boss would let me manage complex projects while training 2 more people to join my team to compensate for the losses. I accepted. Weddings are expensive. So, I trained people to cover for me and then took my vacation. I had a fantastic wedding and honeymoon. The deputy director called me a few times when the 4th member of my team left without notice about 1.5 weeks into my vacation, but I ignored it. When I returned, I was ready for the storm I knew was coming. Everything had descended into chaos. Sales staff were flooding me with texts and emails about complex work they needed done from 2 weeks prior. The people I had quickly trained before leaving could barely handle anything. There was a massive backlog for the entire team since half the original members were gone. I turned off Slack and emailed the sales VPs directly, asking for a prioritized list of complex deals that needed to be completed. I received the list and started working normal hours, doing nothing extra. The female boss didn't try to talk to or interfere with me. The deputy director tried a few times, even asking me to work weekends to catch up. I refused.